What's going on, everybody? It is the Nicholas Perspectives Chelsea Football Channel, and welcome back today, revisiting the Chelsea versus Leicester game yesterday. The 2-1 win, a crucial win, right coming back after the international break. And I wanted to go over five of the most important things I think we really learned from this game. And when we say like things you learn, I'm mainly talking about things like mainly from players or maybe what we saw. In this case, it's going to be based off of mainly what players played like, maybe we didn't expect, or players maybe that I think could be progressing this team forward for the next 10 games into the next international break. I think that's how many we have in the league before the next international break. By that point, we'll have around, I think, 22 games under the belt. So hopefully at that point, we'll know who's who. But let's get into these five things we learned from this game. The first thing we learned, the first guy is Nico Jackson. What do we think about this performance? The way I look at it is that I posted a video earlier last week talking about whether we not Nicholas Jackson would get replaced or earn competition from a potential striking option in the transfer window. That player I suggested being Victor Osimhen from an article being Simon Phillips. Now, Simon Phillips had said 62 million pounds is around what we could pay. It was his release clause, I think, of 75 million euros with the overall fee in euros. Do we do it? At this point, no way. No way. I hold my hands up right now. He needs an apology from our fan base and the critics around the Premier League. This guy does everything a striker needs to do to be successful. Nicholas Jackson, in that goal, tracked down Wout Faith, I think that's his name, the Belgium center back, tracks him down. He relentlessly presses this guy until he makes the mistake. Of course, it's a little bit of a lucky deflection into Enzo, but Enzo does what he needs to do. And the deflection, or not the deflection, the touch from his right foot onto over Okoli and quickly able to snap it into the bottom right corner is a striker's finish. He has been brilliant for us this season, and he's going to continue to do it. I have no doubt in my mind. Last season, he was converting chances around the same pace. He had 6 and 12 last year. He's got 7 and 12 this season, so it's actually a very even amount. But he didn't have any assists at that point. He does have 3 now, so it's 10 goal contributions to his 6. So it's an improvement by 4 goal contributions in that 12-game stretch compared to last season. So it's better from Jacko at this point. These numbers are only going to be able to get better, though. Of course, he finished on 14 last year, a great total to be in your first season as the starting striker of Premier League or in Chelsea in your first season in the Premier League. But I expect that number to grow only more and more. I expect Jacko to almost get 20 this season. If he does somehow get less than that number, I'd be very surprised. The way he's, conducted himself throughout this season, the way he's stayed fit, I think that's the number one thing. Jackson has stayed fit throughout the turbulent times of last season and so far this season. The way he's been able to not miss these bigger games and stay healthy and stay on the field has to be definitely something is looked at as well. No injuries at all since he's came to Chelsea. I'm almost certain he's not missed a single game. Quote me on it, but I'm almost certain he hasn't missed a single match as a Chelsea football player. So that's the first thing. Do I think that him as a player will grow into maybe some of we've seen with Osimhen? I think he's starting to be one of the top 3 strikers right now in the Prem. And commentators are saying the same thing. I personally don't see a way in the world that Nico Jackson is not amongst the top strikers in the Premier League right now. This guy is striking the ball. I mean, who's above him right now? Holland, of course. And then who? Maybe Isaac? After that, who are you saying? Don't give me that Darwin Nunez stuff. Kai Havertz? No, no way. Are you serious? People who say that would be out of your mind. Kai Havertz obviously wouldn't be in that list. It's Nico. It's not even close. Nico Jackson takes that spot. He's the first thing we learn. And to be honest, I need him to keep playing. It's almost certain. And if he can stay healthy, it's as simple as that. He's going to keep playing. On to the second thing we've learned from this game, Chelsea versus Leicester, I would say it's the second goal scorer, Enzo Fernandez. My point of position on him has completely switched. Over the last 3 games, he has 6 goal contributions, 5 assists with a goal. He's on fire. Of course, he played Noah. He got 3 assists in 1/2, so that's part of it. But you can't take the other games he's had out of reach. The game against Arsenal, he looked great when he came on. This game against Leicester, a brilliant one all around. He's had some things to deal with all season so far. He had problems over with Wesley Fofana and the French team after calling, we won't say it, but he said some pretty poor things about the French national team. Then he had problems with the driving in Argentina. And obviously, we know he's a pretty poor driver because it's happened on multiple occasions. And now you hear this thing about him getting divorced with his wife. So multiple problems have been surrounding him overall the last few months. And isn't it funny that ever since he's divorced his wife, he's been one of the better players on the team and playing at a more consistent level? I don't know what that means, but it's just been what's been happening. But Enzo in this one was brilliant. He was one of the better, and I can even say one of the better players. He probably was the best player in this match. The way I think he had the most ground duels and tackles in this one for a player who's been way below the level of our midfielders in tackling and ground duel. I think ground duels one. His passing metrics in some ways have even been worse than some other ones because he does like to play more long balls, and I think his long ball succession rate was pretty good in this one as well. But he was conducting himself very well in the midfield, especially because he was that I think the bit of the higher midfielder, and Caicedo was a little bit lower on that spectrum. Actually, can we go check it? I would love to go see this if we can check it out real quick. Let's go ahead and check it out. I would love to look at this one. So let's look at it real quick. You can see those passing metrics are very, very good. His long balls, not the greatest, but it could be worse. 7 out of 9 ground duels. That's spectacular. Then you move on. He did lose possession a few times, but I'm not too worried about that when you have the kind of game he had. But he was all over the place. This was a brilliant game from Enzo Fernandez, and if he can play this kind of consistency, and if he can be used in the games that matter in this way, when we talk about I'm talking about games like this, when a team is going to sit back and you need a player to be able to play those progressive passes, and you don't need to be sitting back playing more defensively. Romeo Lavia is a player who can play alongside Caicedo in a more defensive-minded game, and he's going to give you more stability in the midfield for a more defensive stability in the midfield. Enzo might not be as good as a tackler, even though he proved it in this one, but at the same time, you're not going to get that same kind of passing out of Romeo Lavia you're going to get Enzo Fernandez. He's not the same type of ball progressor. Of course, we've seen great play from Lavia, but he's not the same as Enzo. Enzo just proved that on a whole other level in this one. He was getting in the right positions, he's playing the right passes, and he was even showing an offensive tackler today. If he can keep doing it as a consistent level, this Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo midfield is going to be the one that sticks around for years to come. And that really surprised me, really, when I was looking at this one. The third thing we really learned, in my opinion, is that Joao Felix definitely had shown himself well on that left-hand side. Now, the thing that we really saw with this one in Joao Felix, obviously him playing on the left-hand side was something that we all really didn't expect. I obviously had Neto and Jadon Sancho, I think, as my winger pairing going into this game. It obviously didn't happen because Jadon was off the bench and Neto had a knock from the international break he couldn't get rid of. So obviously, Joao Felix came in. And what we mainly saw in this one was that Joao Felix was able to more sit inside as not much of as a 10, but he was more of a winger that was doing a lot more in progression. He was getting a bit more inside. And Cucurella was the one who was giving us that outside overlap. So that's what we mainly saw, and that's who was giving us the width. We weren't getting it from Joao Felix, we were getting it from Cucurella. So that's what was allowing him to be able to be a bit more free roaming and letting him play with Palmer a little bit. But what we mainly saw in Joao Felix was, of course, I said in the last episode yesterday, I didn't think that Joao Felix. I said it. I'm like, I didn't really think he was too spectacular, and I didn't think he really did enough to warrant him starting future games on the left hand side. After watching the game again, I came to the conclusion that I was wrong. He had 9 out of 14 ground duels win. So the problem we all thought with Jean Felix is that if he were to lose the ball, he wouldn't be able to want to get play defense. He was lazy, and he didn't have that kind of work rate. He showed that work rate at high amounts yesterday. High amounts. He was brilliant on the defensive side of the ball, and he did his thing on the progressive side of the ball. if this is a system that we could see in the foreseeing future, if Joao Felix could keep playing on the left hand side, because it's a true possibility at this point, it really is a true possibility. I can see it happening. If he's going to stay on the left hand side, then I can definitely see a way this formation happens. Because of course we didn't see an inverted fullback in this one, an inverted wingback, I guess would be a better word. We didn't see that in this one. We saw the overlap. We saw Felix cut inside, and we let him. He let him do his thing. He was dancing around players. We saw how much of a danger he created because Steve Cooper, of course, he got fired yesterday. He wasn't preparing maybe for a Joao Felix winger. So in a way, you had to let Palmer. Of course, Palmer again was man marked in this one. So Joao Felix had to be a bit more of a progressor of the field, and it worked because he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. So out of the three things so far, only positives. And I think I'm going to keep saying it for the following ones too. The fourth thing that we really learned from this match is that Benoit Badiashile put in a great shift. I mean, when we all saw that lineup, we were like, "Oh my God, why is Benoit playing? This guy has a nickname for a problem that he's been so far as a player." But in this one, he showed that grace. He showed a passing that we saw when he came here. The most touches in this match, the one of the more accurate long balls percentages in this match, the most ball progressions in this match almost, I'm pretty sure. He was brilliant in this one. Absolutely brilliant. He was a stalwart at the back. Like I said in the last video, he was brilliant. Or I guess the entire defense was really brilliant except for that one fault mistake. So in a way, you could give the entire defense of an entirely fourth thing we learned. But I'm going to separate it in two. The next player will also be part of the defense. But I'm also saying that I think Benoit deserves his credit. In a defensive structure that we saw in this one, it allowed him to be a bit more free. Him and Levi Colwill next to one another looked a lot better. Even though I think Levi Colwill had said that he was carrying an illness in this one, he played through an illness. And again, when we saw in this one, it didn't look like Levi. I think he was the worst of the two, which is insane to say because of how we've seen Benoit this season. The amount of times we've seen this guy making stupid mistakes, poor passes, you saw in the Newcastle game. You know, that was probably one of the worst performances we saw out of him all season, but we saw a lot of it last year. There's a reason we called him Benoit Badia shite, you know, for a reason. But in this one, there wasn't him. Of course, we didn't see Axel Disasi either, but Benoit Badia Shield, if he can get rid of that nickname by playing really well in these games, dude, he's going to keep doing it, and he's going to do it at a really good rate. I'd love to see him playing it this way for God knows. If he can play like this every single time he comes in the field, we're gonna not want to have to worry about getting a center back. Of course, I talked about Thomas Araujo being a center back option, possibly in the next transfer window. If Badiashile can play like this, we're not gonna have to worry about another center back option. We've got three good options and maybe even a fourth. Hopefully, Axel Disasi can step his game up too, but you know, I'm not gonna step that far just yet. Learn. The last thing is Wesley Fofana at right back. Of course, we really played three center backs in this one. It was Benoit Badiashile, Levi Colwill, and Wesley Fofana. Of course, the natural partnership of Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana is the one we usually have, and they've been a lot better throughout the season so far. But Wesley Fofana had to slide over at right back in this one because Malo was feeling an illness, I think around the same day. And it seemed like, of course, we didn't have Reece James because we don't know how long he's going to be out for. And of course, Josh Achiampong is not signing a contract. So that is the reason that Wesley Fofana was at right back. However, I think that with the way this defensive structure looked, playing the three center backs, having the one left sided wing back of Kukurea, it looked really damn good. Of course, I said I could have separated it and had a one tab for the defense itself, but I wanted to separate it into two sections. I wanted to talk about the right back position in particular because of how much inconsistency we've had with that position playing wise this season, because we've had a lot of movement and different players in that role this season. Wesley Fofana has played there. Axel Disasi has played there. We've seen Reece James play there. We played Malo Gusto there. So four different players have played there. Not, I'm talking about from the starting spot. We've seen Josh, of course, play there, but Achiampong obviously hasn't played since. But Wes in this one was very, very good. what we've noticed about him is that you really get the two dynamics with the center back position. When Levi is on the ball, he plays more passing from his standstill. He plays a lot more threading the line passes. And what Wes gives you is he's going to run at the defense. He's a ball progressor. And in this one, Leicester allowed him to step up and run into their defensive half. He was making runs at their center backs even at times. The CDMs would be like, okay, he's not going to step up. And then you'd see him run about 25, 30 yards down the field and play a ball into Madueke or something. He was making these great runs throughout this entire game, and nobody was getting past this guy. He's not a natural center back, or natural right back, my bad. He's not a natural right back. He's barely played games there probably his entire career. And in the games he's had to fill in the Bournemouth game, he looked really solid at that right back spot. And then one, I think he's had to play one other game at right back, and in that one he wasn't as good. But in this one at center or right back, he was brilliant. So if we have to continue with this problem with no right backs ever available in the starting lineup, I would have no problem seeing this exact same defensive structure again. And I've got to give Wes my praise. He was absolutely brilliant in this one. What do you guys think? I think that those are five really, really good key learning points. I didn't think there was any negatives really to point on this one. Of course, it's the little silly mistake with that Lavia that lets him, of course, get the goal in this one in the 95th minute. But the defense, like I said, was amazing. They should have gotten the clean sheet. Of course, I could have called out Rabo Sanchez, but I've done that enough to the point that it's not even a key learning point. We all know that's not. We've learned that throughout the entire season so far. So I think that's at this point we've got to see what happens. Of course, next game, Heidenheim on Thursday. Review will probably be out on Wednesday. Thank you very much for watching. See you then. Peace.